Vivek Panot. I'm a solution director within the SAP practice here at HCL. Very happy to be here and very happy to be talking to you along with Interactive, a lot of things that we've been working together on. I've been within SAP area for more than 20 years, and I actually lead the EAM MRO practice for HCL in North America. Over to you, Sri.
Thank you, Vivek and Matt. Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Sri Karthik with Innovative. I lead the solution engineering team and bring in a lot of experience, especially with digitization around SAP, ECC, and S4HANA platforms. David, over to you.
About that, I was muted. Hi, everybody. I'm Dave April. I'm the head of product management at Innovative. I bring over 20 years experience in mobile enterprise asset management and supply chain management experience. I started out with a company called Cyclo that was acquired by SAP, where I worked for SAP Asset Manager in the Cyclo product suite before joining Innovative. So it's great to be here with everyone today. Thanks.
Thank you, presenters. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Matthew and Vivek to get us started for today.
Sure, thank you, Edward. If you could just move forward with the slide, yes. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to give everybody a very quick overview on the HCL SAP practice. I mean, just a couple of points here that I wanted to make before we move on. So basically, we have a global reach in terms of the customers that we've worked with. One thing is that we have an extensive SAP mobility as well as domain experience in a lot of areas, especially from an asset management standpoint, which I kind of look after. We're known to be thought leaders in terms of what we would do from an SAP standpoint, and as well as we work with a lot of leading edge technology. And lastly, what I wanted to say was we have some very, very strong partners, hence the webinar that we're doing here with Interactive. Can I move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I wanted to give kind of a perspective of the digital business transformation from our standpoint. I mean, we work with a lot of customers. We've seen a lot of things on the ground. And I just wanted to lay some groundwork in terms of some of these perspectives, right? So the first thing that we have here is the whole thing around talent management of the frontline workers, right? So office versus the frontline workers, right? So we want to focus in on those frontline workers, be they in the warehouse, or if they're in operations in a plant, or if they're a maintenance technician, or even if they're doing field service as a utility. Right? I've ridden in a lot of trucks and walked around a lot of plants, and one of the things that we want to see that we've seen is how these organizations are dealing with a aging workforce and some resulting talent gaps that would come when more senior workers are either moving on or they're retiring, right? So there is a whole concept of retaining knowledge and capability, especially when the people who know their job so well, right, move on, right? In the speak that we have, we call this tribal knowledge, right? And for the most part, tribal knowledge can be looked at as an intangible asset, right? And it's an intangible asset, but it's also a big source of competitive advantage. So I think the question that a lot of our customers are asking is, how can we bridge this gap? How can we continue to keep the knowledge that our workers have when they are no longer there. And I think that's one of the themes that we will talk about today. The second thing that I have that we've seen from our customers is a gap between where they are now and where they want to be in terms of SS4HANA, the whole target state, right? So there is a point when a lot of our customers will move on to S4, but when is that at the going to be, and how can they bridge the gap between where they are now and when they want to be moving on to S4, right? So there is a whole point about making an investment to bridge that gap, and whether or not that is future proof, right? So you want to be able to get the usability of S4, uh, but without actually going through the motions of making that big switch over, right? So one of the things that we will probably talk about today is how customers can migrate to S4, but on their own terms, right? And the connected worker platform, I think, is a way that you would be able to go through and bridge that gap without going through a huge investment on your part. The last point that I have here is what we call low-hanging fruit. So mobility and field mobility or plant mobility, basically, we consider low-hanging fruit. There is a possibility of rapid implementation. So you want to be able to get best practices out of the box, and that we can do fairly quickly. We want to be able to put business context SAP data in the hands of every worker, right? So they should be able to see things that they need in order to get their work done, right? Something which is task-based. Whether it's a warranty on a particular piece of equipment when you first go and take a look at it, whether it's machine fault codes which are coming in from the machine. All of these things are required pieces of information when they walk up to a piece of equipment that they're taking a look at, or material that they have in their warehouse. And lastly, they want to be able to get a immediate bump in productivity, the ability to make informed decisions, as well as data accuracy, right? So mobility, we feel, is something that everybody should be taking a look at, and taking a look at such that they can make that those productivity, data accuracy, and the decision making benefits. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is something that we've done with InnoAptive, right? So recently we actually did a large assessment for a asset intensive customer, and the customer actually gave InnoAptive, the solution that InnoAptive had produced, very high marks. So basically, the assessment was conducted on various solutions, about 9 solutions, and we had 50 plus requirements from that particular customer. Some of the requirements included bridging existing product gaps that they had, some legacy gaps that they had within their SAP system or the legacy processes. They wanted to eliminate paper processes and manual entry. And then they also wanted to use a fully integrated solution. So 2 things came out of this assessment. Basically, the customer was firstly very impressed with the benefits of the out-of-the-box InnoAptive mobility solution. And now this was for maintenance execution, but things like their simplified user experience, their map-centric asset management processes. And the second thing was that they really saw the advantage, and I think my colleagues at InnoAptive are going to talk about this in the next segment, about this race toolkit, right? This is this low code, no code race toolkit, right? So they wanted to be able to configure rather than code. So they talk about configurable screens, configurable dashboards, and that was another big plus point that we saw as part of this assessment. Okay, I think that's the end of my segment. I'll hand it over to Matt.
Next slide. Good. So, one of the paradigms has always been out there in the SAP solution, lines of code in a system, right? We start looking at mobility solutions, and we start looking at how and what the end users actually need, right? We've really hit this paradigm, and it's been out there, and slides like this or this roadmap has been out there for years. Buy versus build, right? But we actually kind of take a little bit of a twist on it, is reuse versus buy versus build, right? So when we start looking at today from an SAP perspective, what's available, right? There are Fury screens out there in S4, a little bit back into the ECC days today, right? But when we start looking at it, how can we put in a solution for customers, kind of Vivek was saying, in that future proofing, right? And that when we start making this move to S4, as customers start making this move to S4, we're not abandoning everything that we built, right? We don't have a cycle solution that's going to just die and then have to move to Fury or something else, right? So one of the things that the Innovaptive, and especially the race platform, brings us on that buy side of the house, right, is we're buying a platform that can be used today in an ECC environment, that's future-proof for the S4 environment, that you're not having to change out connected devices as the back-end platform moves forward. You're not having to rework code, rework screens, rework things, and almost gut the infrastructure at some point to move forward as piece parts of your environment change, right? In that postmodern ERP phase, right? SAP is going to be great for some things and not great for other things, right? And having a platform that quickly bridges into the SAP footprint of your IT environment is really going to be key today, right? We want to get away from having to code stuff, code screens, code functions, right? We want to use the functionality that's in the background, in the back end of the system, and expose it. And with Race and the technology that Innovaptive has in their platform, we've really seen that come to fruition with some of our clients. Next slide. Apologize, fighting a little cold. So this is the HCO UI decision tree matrix, kind of big, and I apologize for the text being so small, but to try to get it all on one page, I had to kind of squeeze it down, right? But the Innovaptive solution is embedded into this, right? There's going to be areas where things that are needed and that could be just brought out of an S4 environment can be done fairly easy and fairly quickly with just maybe a Persona or Fury screen extension, right? But when we get into that time to value, that offline mobility worker and things like that, when we get far down into the tree, the Innovaptive solution really drives home, the value and that speed to market with a solution, right? Our users today don't want to give us requirements and come back 6 months later for an operational solution. They want to hand us something on Friday, and either by that next Monday or by the following Monday, have a functioning solution. Maybe not perfect, but have a functioning solution. So the Innovaptive platform, the Race platform as a whole, really drives that value in that configurability. Where, hey, I'm almost taking some of the coding aspects of what we would have to run through a functional consultant, design it, and hand it to a developer, write the code, test it, and validate it. I can almost hand that to business level style SMEs with the ability to go, tweak and change, forms, inside the Race platform as needed as the end users, workload may change or how they're interacting with in the field might change. So I want to hand it over to David or Sri to talk some more about the specific platform and how that connected worker solution really drives home and some of the technology aspects about it.
Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. I want to echo and reinforce several of the things that both Matt and Vivek were discussing here. And first of all, when we talk about the connected worker, I kind of want to define that term. Because as Vivek said, mobility is an aspect of the connected worker, and it's really, your first step into the bigger space. When we talk about the connected worker, we're talking about taking all the technologies that we're seeing today, all the things where the value is increasing and the cost is decreasing to implement, bringing in mobility, bringing in wearables, AI, ML for decision making, virtual assistants or extended assistants, and other connected products such as IoT, et cetera, and bringing that all in with the connected frontline workers. So, as the slide says, the goal is really to make sure that the worker has the tools they need to get the job done faster, better, cheaper, and next slide, please. So Vivek talked a little bit about the tribal knowledge and the skills gap that we have with aging workers. The slide that I'm showing here has some specific statistics around the oil and gas industry, but it's pretty consistent, plus or minus a few years here or there across all different asset-intensive industries: mining, utilities, manufacturing, et cetera. And even in IT, I mean, look at Vivek and myself. I would consider myself proudly one of the aging workers who has a lot of tribal knowledge and want to share that. On the other side of that, when I started my career, before I got into software and mobility, I actually worked for 10 years in utilities down in Springfield, Illinois, and I started my career as a maintenance manager, a frontline manager for me. Doing telephony services down there. And it was pretty funny at the time, they called me Kid Boss because everybody who worked with me had been with the company longer than I'd been alive. So they were, great examples of having that kind of tribal knowledge, and those, they knew everything about the local plant in Springfield. They knew where the aerial cables were that had all the problems. They knew where the cross boxes were that were always under repair and needed to be replaced soon by engineering, but weren't scheduled for another 3 months. So their time to repair, having all that expertise was always greatly reduced because they came in there with that expertise. And so the challenge is really, how do you take that from that skilled worker and bring that down to anybody new entering the workforce? Certainly capturing that information and bringing that as learning tools is a lot cheaper and a lot faster than having to recruit and train new expertise. At the same time, safety is certainly a concern too. And these we have obvious health and safety issues and want to make sure that we are social distancing and keeping protected and all that. But obviously in asset-intensive industries, you're working around a lot of dangerous equipment, you're working a lot around dangerous procedures, and you have to do things the right way, or injury or even death are possibilities. So nobody wants that, and we want to make sure that everybody's working healthy in a healthy and safe environment. So when you're bringing in new people, how are you training them in a quicker way, in a way that lets them have the tools they need to work fast and safely right in front of them? Next slide, please. So on the other side of that, we have the new workers coming into the workforce, replacing some of the aging workforce, and the so-called digital natives. These are the folks that have grown up with technology all their lives. I mean, we can all include ourselves in that, but they are truly representative. Everything they do attached to their phone, their entire consumer experience, whether it's ordering food or ordering, their Uber, talking to their friends, resolving, whatever reservations they have at a restaurant they want to go to. Everything is done through their devices. So they expect the same thing. If they're coming into the workforce now, they really expect to have technology sophistication, and there's an expectation that they're not going to be working in a dated environment where they don't have the tools of the trade that they're used to, and an easy way to do it. So they want that consumer experience as well. And of course, at the same side, management wants to tackle the margin pressures that exist in times like COVID, where we're operating with reduced workforces. That doesn't mean that the business has changed, right? Just because you have fewer people that you're able to deploy or work with, due to unplanned absences or anything else, you still have your maintenance backlog, and you still have to make the most of your efficiency that you have. Next slide, please. So that's where Innovaptive comes in, right? So as Matt and Vivek mentioned, we have a core platform around which we've built a product suite. And the product suite that we offer is around enterprise asset management and supply chain management and fixed asset tracking. So what we take with our applications is, we want to take this 80%, 90% threshold of functionality, whatever you need for basic work order management, right? You're dealing with work order and notification life cycles. You're dealing with material consumption. You're dealing with operation confirmation and working with attachments that you want to take pictures and annotate them and send them up and fill out forms and make sure that you're sending your documents to a proper workflow where you show that you've completed something and somebody else has to sign off, or if it's a safety form, you're filling those out. So we have all of this out of the box product suite available. But we also recognize that just the way Innovaptive builds something isn't necessarily the way that a customer wants to use it. So we want to make sure that through configuration, not through coding, you're able to take your business processes and your business objects and the interface that you want to work with to get the job done and configure it through RACE. So like Matt said, the advantage of a low-code platform is I'm not hiring iOS developers or Android developers or Windows developers. I have business analysts, or I have people that can do configuration. I can make the application work the way I want, and I can get the job done that much faster. Next slide, please. So here are some examples. I wanted to show some specifics in this case, our work order product, of some of the things that we do to claim the productivity enhancements and increases that we make. So in this case, you can see this is some inspection rounds forms. So we have the ability to give you guided workflows that show you step-by-step visual directions and say, it's not just what SAP provides on an operation that says these are the steps. It's also just taking you through those steps and showing you how you have to do it and what you have to do. How you have to do it, not just what you have to do. And it also lets you increase compliance. So if you have procedural things that you have to do for your company, you have safety compliance, you have otherwise industry compliance you have to do. You're capturing the information you need at the point of presence that you're doing things. Along with that, when we talk about tribal knowledge capture, there's a lot of ways to do that, right? When I was talking about my crew in Springfield, there's a couple, right? Maybe some of them retire out and they become consultants themselves, and they're able to provide their expertise back to the workforce through a consultancy. Or because of COVID, maybe we're not traveling as much from plant to plant, whether you're going across town or you're going across state or across countries, if you have a lot of different locations. So how can I get that remote expertise either from this outside expert or somebody within my own organization? I can certainly record their stories and have them available as video attachments along with the work I have to do, or I can have a live Zoom call, just like we're doing right now, where using wearables, they're able to see what I can see. So as if I'm working on this electrical panel and I don't know how to fix it, I've got a voice over my shoulder helping me out with that and pointing the way. Next slide, please. So SAP provides a lot of great structure with SAP PM and all of the business objects that we're all familiar with, CC or S4HANA or whatever, but there is certainly a considerable amount of unstructured data that is also part of everything that our companies do and need to do. And another benefit with our work order product is what we call race dynamic forms, which is a capability for you to take your existing paper, your existing Excel sheets, whatever. When we talk about paper forms, we're really talking about disconnected forms. So they're just not necessarily associated with your system of record in the back end. So if I'm able to take something like a spreadsheet or just a paper form, scan it, turn it into a PDF, I can bring it certainly as a viewable only PDF, and I can annotate it and write up and make notes on it. But we can also take that one step further, and we can actually provide an authoring tool that lets you digitize that into a smart form. So you not only have things like checkboxes, but as you can see on the screen, there are multi-select controls, there are inputs like date pickers or numeric controls and things like that to really allow you to capture exactly what was on the form in a very smart way. And we also want to accelerate that by giving you an industry-specific library of pre-made forms. So whether they're OSHA-compliant safety forms or industry-specific things for different procedures or methods that you have to do, we have a set of hundreds ready-made forms, ready to be used, or bring in your own with a very quick authoring tool. I had mentioned before about the operational workflows, but we're also providing work instructions. So we have a work instruction authoring tool that really lets you additionally show, describe any hazards or precautions that you might want to take care of. You can, again, as I mentioned, attach videos or images so that the technician right at the point of operation is able to pull up those work instructions and take them through next slide, please. So really bringing that all together is what we're doing today as far as the mobility portion. As I mentioned, we have maintenance, procurement, accounting and warehouse operations as just part of our out-of-the-box suite. We provide that with a user interface that gives you that consumer experience that you're looking for. So we want to take the complexity and the just the complications of an SAP screen and bring that down into a nice, friendly, intuitive mobile user interface. We want to give you real-time information when you're connected, but if you're in a low or no bandwidth situation, it's 2020, and a lot of us, shrug off the need for offline operations. But asset-intensive industries are notorious for not necessarily having good connectivity, just because the environments, they're in remote environments, and network connectivity is not always an option. So having offline capabilities is just as key and critical to keeping your operation going and making sure that you can do everything you need to do. And then, by having validations and data capture right at the point of operation, you're making sure that you're not taking extra time for manual data collection and reduce wrench time because you have to go back to the shop and put in all your work for the day. You're getting it right down there. You are reducing the number of errors you get through on-screen validations on the device and in the back end, and making sure that ultimately that that you're able to capture things better, faster, cheaper, and safer, as we mentioned. So with that, I want to stop what I'm talking about now. I think we're going to switch over to more of a panel discussion format to talk about some of these topics, and Shree's going to moderate for us. So Shree, if I can turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks for the insights, Matt and Rick and David. I think definitely sets the stage for some of the questions that we've been getting not only from the audience here, but something that we've heard in the past as well. So I'll take this audience question first, and maybe I'll throw it your way, Matt or Vivek. So this one says, in the COVID environment where some businesses are taking a short-term view on retaining senior people and knowledge, are there any thoughts on how HCL can support knowledge retention?
Matt, do you want to take that, or should I? I can kind of talk about that. I think one of the things that that we've seen that we've done is a lot of the companies that we have worked with. I mean, I spent about 2.5 years at Boeing, and they were having a lot of issues around not only COVID, but with the 737, which I just heard that they got clearance to fly again from the FAA, which I'm very, very happy about. But they were very particular about keeping the especially the knowledge around each one of their employees within the organization. There was a lot of going back to capturing it. A number of things that they've done in terms of putting procedures in place, making sure that Some of the folks that they were on the 737 line, for instance, were sent to other lines, and doubling up from that perspective, because they did not want to lose those people at all. So that's my experience, at least.
That's a good point, Vivek. I know, David, from your point of view, you've been kind of engaged with some of our customers, especially in the mining space, right, where flying in and flying out is getting harder during the COVID times as well. Maybe you can share some of your experience on how they're managing, retaining kind of their senior workers, right? Even remotely, right? So, and how they're supporting some of the field workforce as well. Maybe you can share how they're doing it, and especially with technology.
Sure, and that's exactly what we were referring to earlier by saying, look, you got to do less with more, right? So, as I mentioned, it's not always a question of driving across town to inspect another plant or some other environment. Sometimes, you're the expert who has to deal with other plants and other facilities, across wide geographic expanses. And, it's not just a COVID health issue, although that's really, been a lot of the driving factor in remote acceptance, right? I mean, the fact that we're all doing webinars like this right now, and this is, the new norm rather than having an in-person conference, we're all getting used to this. So the fact that now, COVID might impose upon it, but even after COVID lifts, I think customers are seeing the business value of having this one expert in one location that they can just do a remote conference with. So, having the remote conferencing capability on the device when the separate Zoom client or integrated into their maintenance management application, they can talk to that person without them physically having to get on a plane, see me the next day. I've got the problem now, we can talk about it now, and I can get the work done faster as well.
I think you're absolutely right there as well. For another client of ours is doing exactly the same thing. They're already doing it today. So when a technician is going out and taking a look at this is a real client, taking a look at the situation at the equipment, they want to be able to reach back to the experts who may not be at the location itself. So having that available and being able to share, either to share videos or to share photographs, and to get experts to kind of come in and understand where the failures have occurred, right, would help the person on the ground very, very much.
Sri, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Thanks for that, Vivek. Yep. So next one, I think, this ties into a couple questions that I received here on the Q&A panel, right? So maybe I'll first throw it to Vivek over here or Matt, and then, follow it up to you, Dave. So what are some of the reasons why field mobility projects fail or result in low user adoption, right? Did early adopters learn any lessons which, helped pave the way, right? And I have a follow-on question to that as well, but we'll get started here. Maybe. Sure.
And I can get started on this, because I've seen, we've been in situations where, we've had a number of different types of applications that we've taken a look at. One of the big problems that we've seen is when a field application is almost a duplication of desktop functionality. So it's too clunky. It has everything that the desktop may have, versus an application, right, which is more task centric, right? So a field worker or a person on the shop floor, right, is trying to complete a task, right? So making the application more task-centric, helping him or her to complete his work quickly and with the right information right in front of him is really one of the things that we want to be able to get to. I think that's the one of the keys that we've seen where things are just not working. If it's just a almost a duplication of a desktop app, which is very too complicated.
That makes sense, right? So don't just give me SAP on a tablet or a mobile screen, but show us how you can add value to the field user or the shop floor user's day-to-day life, right? That's we see that a lot as well.
Exactly. If a certain piece of information is not required, then why even have it there?
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree with Vivek, and kind of the follow-up, right? When some of our most successful, mobility solutions that we've deployed at American Airlines and others, right? It wasn't, hey, here are the 10 screens and 72 fields across the screens that needed to be put into that were on the desktop version, the SAP GUI screens or the ABAP WebDem Pro screens or Java WebDem Pro screens, right? It wasn't pulling all of that across and trying to stick it into a mobile app. The users needed 6 fields across 2 screens to complete the task. That was all that was presented, and so they were in and out all day long of the specific screens or specific tasks, right? And it was a big win. They weren't having. It's really in some ways, I don't want to say simplifying down, but you download an app from the App Store on iTunes or Google, you don't necessarily have to figure out how to use it, right? You don't have to have a manual how to use it. It's very intuitive. So building that mobile solution, right, that's intuitive for the end user to pick up and say, okay, I need to order a part. I click on order part. I enter what I need. It progresses forward, confirms the order, and then they get notifications of it. It's not all the back end functionality that would normally be available for a power user, sitting in an office somewhere.
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple of points on to what everybody's saying here, Sri, because if we're talking about why a project could fail, I think at Innovapta we produce things that are intuitive and do look nice for the user and all that, but we can still have a failed project if we really don't get organizational change management in place, right? We have to be talking to our users from the beginning. We have to involve them, the end users. We have to let them know that this is coming. Get some change champions with those customers involved so that the people who are actually going to be using the devices and taking these processes are buying in, right? If they don't like it, your project's going to fail, right? They will find ways to not use it. They will find ways to break it. They will find ways to just otherwise do something they're comfortable with. And as we're talking about, the technician community in the asset intensive industry is a very wide range of technology friendliness to technology phobia, and with everybody from young to old and everybody in between. So getting people comfortable with the technology, getting them to buy in and see the value of what you're doing with this project, and not just have it being driven by IT or upper management, really having the users say, yes, I want this, this is going to make my life better, is definitely key to the success.
True, David. I think that's some great feedback here, which brings me to a question that came in from one of the audience members here who's been involved in a mobile application rollout in a traditional industry. And he says one of the issues was user adoption, where the technology itself was alien. That is, user had never used a mobile device before, right? And wants to know if there are any thoughts on how to address this, David. I think this kind of adds on to what you just touched upon, Dave, right? Any specific strategies that you recommend and that you've actually spoken to the Innovaptive deployment teams to support? I'm sure you've come across similar challenges before, right, in your long experience.
Sure, and like we said, it really comes down to managing the change properly within the organization. So a vendor can come in, an implementation partner can come in, but really, if that person who is ultimately using it is not friendly with the mobile device, or even if they are, and this is just something that, however it's implemented, just doesn't work necessarily the way they expect it to, get them involved in the process. you can do a lot of different things with that. You can first of all, as I said, you identify change champions within your organization, and that does not necessarily mean upper management. You certainly want to have somebody with your project who is going to champion it through and get the budget and get the rollout and make sure that it gets in the hands of the users. But change champions are really frontline people. Those are the supervisors who are going to be working with the technicians using it. They're the technicians themselves who are saying, hey, I might not know how to do this, but I'm willing to step up and train me so you can train the trainer, and I'm going to help everybody else. So I think it's really getting that involved, getting not just the software, but showing design, showing what you are interested in, and hearing feedback from the users, because they might have a lot of good ideas, right? They might look at your screens that you're presenting to them and say, that's all well and good, but I've got thumbs as big as your wrist, or I'm wearing gloves all the time. Why are you giving me these little tiny buttons to press, right? Give me an industrial interface that's going to let me do my job in the environment I'm working in. And you'll find when you listen to their feedback that you're going to produce a better product, and you're going to be more successful in your implementations as well.
And to follow on that, right? That training up front and the change management and the actual field workers being a part of the process, in designing what they're going to use and having some input in that ownership of saying, hey, yeah, this will work for me. But in that comment about the I'm wearing gloves, what we found at one project was, hey, the stockroom clerks and the people processing some orders and with the mobility applications and pulling out equipment and things like that, they had no problems on smaller form factor devices, small Android tablets or small or larger form factor iPhones and things like that. But the guys turning the wrench in the fields, replacing the equipment, they didn't want to have to take off gloves to pick up the device, to take a picture, to document, to go in, to put gloves back on. They just wanted to get their task done. So it was, okay, we need a bigger device, and we need to look downstream of saying, okay, hey, what kind of, these guys have to wear mechanics or some kind of gloves as they perform these tasks. Do they have the right kind of gloves that have the tactile sensors on the actual fingers so they can touch the screens? So you're not disrupting their day-to-day job, which is to fix things or change parts or turn wrenches, right? By giving them this new way of working, right? So it's that integration of this new concept of this device that they're connected to, right, to perform their tasks and document things, right? But has to be layered into how do they actually work in the field, right? If you're in an environment that's very heavily wet and things like that, well, you need to that mindset has to be taken. I need a device that's water resistant and has protection around with it because it's going to get wet. The first time it dies, this is useless for me to work. I'll just go back to my pen and paper, right? So that integration of that new dimension and a new way of working into their actual day-to-day jobs is a key factor.
Yep, that's good information there, Matt. Absolutely, right. So David, this is an interesting one, and this is based on the question is what do you see as the difference between a connected worker solution and a connected worker strategy with a mobility solution, right? Because we've seen in recent past, the term connected worker being coined, right? Especially when you're talking about digital transformation, it's less around a point mobile solution and more around providing a connected worker experience. I've actually, frankly, heard about the connected mine and the connected oil field operations, right? So there's a lot of significance to that word connected, right? So from your point of view, with the focus on the frontline worker, right? What are some of the considerations, that are important for enterprises that are looking to kind of solve this challenge and select, frontline worker technology for their workforce?
Sure. Thanks, Sri. I think, again, Vivek alluded to it before. Mobility is obviously key, but it is the first step, right? And ironically, connected also can mean disconnected, right? Connected means not just in the moment. The connected really can mean what do you have to do overall to get the information that I need to get my job done and get that information back to my system of record, back to my colleagues, back to my customers, whoever needs it and how they need it. So if I am hindered in any way from accomplishing that, then I'm not. So, I would first look to a company that has a long-term vision of what they're doing, right? I mean, we can provide a set of applications today that fit the need, but technology changes so rapidly and new capabilities, come and go. And are you, as Matt alluded to, are you future-proof? Are you able to take things that you're doing today, and as a back-end system changes, are you going to have to change out all of your front-end tools, or are they going to be able to work with a new upgrade or a new system? Are you going to be able to incorporate things like hands-free devices, to do the things Matt was saying? I mean, if I am the technician, not only do I not want to take off my gloves, I don't want to put my wrench down. So why do I even have to touch the screen at all? Whether I've got a feedback, a sensitive fingertip on my glove, let me just use my voice, or let me be seeing it, hands-free while I'm working. So are you going to be able to, as a connected, strategy, are you going to be able to adopt the new technologies that comes in? As you have more and more smart assets with IoT and other sensors and other things providing information independently to your system of record, are you going to be able to integrate that so I can talk to the machine either indirectly by the machine talking to the back end, saying I've got a problem and generating a work order through some predictive maintenance process and sending it to me, or me walking up to the machine and just through a Bluetooth connection getting sensor information and being able to do immediately a temperature reading or pressure reading or whatever. So really having that end-to-end process of people, methods and machines all talking together is really what we mean by connected, connected strategy.
I think David, you're absolutely right. I think we're missing a lot of good information out there. I mean, our cars talk to us today, right? They're saying, I've got my maintenance period coming up. While at Boeing, we all of the machines that they had, these large machines that they were using to produce the aircraft, were giving all kinds of information. Now, wouldn't that information, be it a machine fault code or a warning that the vibration or pressure or whatever it is that's happening on that machine, wouldn't that be useful to a technician who's stepping in there to do a viewpoint of what is wrong with this thing? Because understanding what the failure is or may be is only the first step of what you want to do, and then that means if you have to go to the location, and the location may be someplace remote. If I'm a utility worker going out and doing a leak survey or doing a leak in an investigation somewhere, that means I have to jump in my truck and go out there. What if the machine or the actual piece of equipment could be telling me all of these things prior to me rolling up to it, so that I would have the spare, or I would have the measurement equipment, or I would have all of the tools that I need to actually get my job done the first time.
Great analogy there, Vivek, with the car and the data that you get around a car, right? Like I can sit and open up an app and see how much gas is in my car and even unlock my car, from my cell phone, right? Yeah, but when we go into the enterprise world, it's slightly different, right, in terms of the capabilities, and that's something we hear a lot as well, right? It is not just providing a mobile interface to let's say complete a work order or create a notification, right? It's about providing intelligence across the health of the asset, the history, and being more informative in terms of giving the user the ability to take proactive steps to resolve issues. So yeah, no, definitely that helps there. Yep. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Let me take this one from the audience. With the proliferation of voice activated devices like Siri and Alexa, what's the view of on moving from keyed in data to spoken data entry, task completion, etc.? Dave, I think this is you're passionate on this topic. You're working on a few projects around hands-free wearable devices. You're also working on voice-enabled inspections. Maybe you want to kind of give where do you see this going in the next, let's say 12 to 18 months?
Sure. So like as Sri said, we talk about, and I showed in some ways, some of the screens where there were screenshots of using, a wearable so that I could be hands-free. One of the challenges with that is it's not just, voice in and of itself is great, right? And when you think about a consumer device like Siri or Alexa or whatever, and I'm asking them a question, usually it's a relatively simple input, and I might get something back like either a simple answer to my question, or I might get back a news report or whatever. But it's something that I can sort of sit back and consume. A lot of times with what I'm doing in an industrial environment where I'm doing inspection or repair, there's a lot of back and forth that has to go on, right? I might take a reading, and the basis of that reading, a different question is going to come out, and I'm going to have to really go through a different flow, and there's a back and forth conversation happening. So it's not just the voice enablement that we're working on and looking at. It's really also changing the user experience, right? I don't want to just voice enable my existing mobile app. That'll get me so far, right? I can voice enable my app and say, open this work order and go to the work order detail screen, or let me look at this equipment record or location record. So let me look at the map to see where I do, and start my directions. All of that is still important. But if I'm really talking about voice enablement in a mobile app, I also want to rethink completely the user experience and simplify that so that I'm not having to get all this cognitive overload about the stuff I'm looking at while I'm giving a voice command. Now, voice goes also, beyond just say, voice-enabled inspection or, form filling and things like that, like Sri was mentioning, where, I can take a form and I can, answer, here, do a checkbox there, pick a value of 1 to 3 to fill out this form. That's great, and that's really cool, and we're going to have that very much in the short term now. But what you also can do with this is, let's say you've got complex content like a video tutorial. Like I said, I want to record those experts down in Springfield who are telling me how to fix the telephony network down there, and they're telling me a story, because storytelling is a very powerful memory inducing way of learning, but it can also ramble. You hear me rambling a lot here sometimes, so. It's like, hey, Dave, get to the point. So suppose that I can take that video and I can just voice search and give a search term and jump right to where I want in that video to get to the tutorial that I want to see. That's going to be very powerful as well. And then combine that also with things like we talk about. It's not just, voice activation of mobility. It's also talking to people, right? I want to be able to talk to Sri and Matt and Vivek while I'm on the job. And if Matt is the expert and can help me fix that electrical panel, I'm seeing what I'm seeing while I'm talking as well. Hope that helps. I think you're muted.
Absolutely. Again. No, absolutely, Dave. Definitely helpful. I think we might have time for one last question, right? Let's talk about, what results have customers seen? Because at the end of the day, nothing happens without a business case and a return on investment, right? So maybe Matt or Vivek, right? What results have your customers seen with connected worker solutions, and how is that translating to in the real world in terms of paybacks?
In some of the industries, right? Especially like in the utilities industry, one call resolution, right? From a customer calling in and the CSATs were met and stuff like that. But you take that paradigm and apply it to, things in the field, right? As Vivek was, mentioning earlier, is that, hey, I know going out to a job site and for a call and to fix something, that I have the documentation I need, or have access to the documentation I might need. I have the spares that I might need. I have the tools to fix the environment. So I'm going prepared. I'm not showing up and like, yep, that bolt is broke and the pump's not working. Okay, I need this bolt and I need another pump because the pump burned out, and I need all this. So I have to go back to the warehouse and order the equipment, right? I can show up that first time, right? And provide the corrective action that's needed, right? And that being connected in the online fashion and the offline fashion, being able to have that documentation on the device, right? It is really key to, driving the business value. If I give an app to a user to go out and do something, and they still have to go back to the warehouse and pull parts and wait on things and go back the next day, did the business really get any value? No, they just digitalized the process that they had before, when they showed up with a form and took a picture with a camera and had to go plug that camera into a laptop and download the picture and post it. And so you just digitalized. You made it a little bit more streamlined, but that business value comes from and what really drives home. We saw this at American Airlines greatly with parts getting to aircraft and maintenance repair and things like that. Is when a tech showed up to the aircraft, he knew day one when he showed up what was broke, what he might need, what he thought he might actually need on top of that. So it decreased the outages of aircraft greatly, right? For them maintaining the fleet.
Absolutely, because that's common theme there, right? It's operational efficiency as well as reducing downtime, right? Increasing uptime on assets. That is the age old, yeah. And of course, improving safety. Three areas. I think thanks for that, Matt. And looks like we're almost at the top of the hour here. So thanks, Matt, Vivek, and Dave for thoughtful responses there. With that, let me turn this over back to Edward to wrap things up. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you, panelists. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today. I want to especially thank you, the attendees, for joining us today and participating in the discussion. We hope you found this webinar useful. As I did mention earlier, you will be receiving an email with a link to download this webinar for on-demand viewing, so please watch for that email. With that, our webinar does come to an end. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next event.